Welcome to our broadcast tonight. Tony Award winner Joe Mantegna takes a break from filming his newest movie to join us. We'll also take a critical look at Hollywood's latest releases with Elvis Mitchell. We begin with one of feminism's most distinguished and controversial figures. For over 20 years, Germaine Greer has been commenting on and helping to change women's role in society. In her latest book, the Cambridge University lecturer analyzes what we know and think we know about the change, women, aging, and the menopause. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Good to see you after many, many years. How's your hiccup?
Not so many years.
Well,
We've known each other for a long time, but we see each other regularly.
That's true.
Not often, but regularly.
But regularly. And how's the hiccups? Have you got it under control?
Well, I'm not sure. The noise you hear is my club soda.
Okay.
Because I just went to Tina Brown's party.
How was it? How was the party?
Vintage New York.
Oh.
At the Lotus Club. It was gorgeous. Who should I see when I walk in?
I don't know.
But Norman Mailer.
He
was the only person I knew.
Now, you two used to do a little bit of this, didn't you?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of, it wasn't...
debating on the lecture circuit.
But not even on the lecture circuit,
Right.
just once.
The town hall, right.
And I respect him. I think he's a wonderful writer. And I think he's, in a way, straight.
What does that mean?
He's not slippery. He's honest about the positions that he holds. He knows they're untenable, but he knows he has no choice but to hold them. So I love him. I love him the way I love my father, dare I say it.
What did you talk about with Norman Mailer?
Him.
Yeah.
That's the subject. But also, it was a three-corner discussion with Camille Paglia.
Ah, now what do you think of her? She was here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, followed by about a week by Susan Sontag.
Well, I think she wrote a good book.
You do?
But I wish she felt less embattled about it.
Yeah.
I wish she was more confident and not quite so speedy.
What do you like about it?
I think it's intelligent and honest, again, and I think it confronts some of the problems that we haven't solved.
Yeah.
In fact, we haven't solved very many problems. We're such a young movement. People in America think that history is made in 5-year periods. It's in fact made in 5-century periods.
And that's what they always said, the Chinese could teach us, that we Americans were looking for instant results, and that the Chinese and other Asians specifically had the greater sense of the long span of civilization and history.
So long that most of them die without accomplishing anything. Well, it's not quite like that, but everybody thinks that feminism achieved its objectives. It didn't.
Yeah.
And every now and then you have to just look straight down the barrel and see what we did get done and what is still to do.
Well, give me your assessment of what you got done and what there's still to do, because there have been a lot of books that have been looked at, including what Camille Paglia said, including what Susan Faludi has said, and including what other people have said. Certainly Backlash has been one of the principal books. What do you think feminism has achieved and what remains high on the agenda?
The thing about Faludi's book is that she doesn't argue there is now a backlash because of things that feminists won. Now they have to suffer because men are angry at losing their privilege. Men haven't lost their privileges. They still have them. And the backlash was always there. The backlash is a constant in men's relations to women. Men are punitive about women. Uppity women get smacked down. And that's been happening since the beginning of time. There's nothing new about that. And Faludi is quite aware of that. She sets it out historically, that there's always been this knee-jerk reaction. Whenever we gain an inch, men were saying they wouldn't open car doors for us before we gained anything. We had to give up having the car door open. The fact that we're holding the kids and the shopping makes no difference. Quite. The taxi drivers were very quick to see that they could stay put. So I think the important thing that has happened is that women have realized that they have a reality of their own, and it's interesting and challenging, and they have to explore it and define it, and that they love doing it, that it's an upper, not a downer.
And what's the contribution of this? We'll sort of dovetail back and talk about it, but what's the contribution of this to that evolution?
First of all, that's not for me to say. The women will tell me if I got it right. What I'm trying to do is to indicate to women that the menopause is not a thing to shy away from or deny, that it is a very dramatic and interesting period in a woman's life. And if you enter into it, if you actually confront it head on, like any other big challenge, like the New York Marathon, you know, once you've done it, even if you only came 257th, you have proved that you can finish the course. You can do it. You know something about yourself. There's no challenge there that you can't meet. And when you have met it, you are stronger and calmer, and you know how to manage the rest of your life, which for all of us is going to be a big challenge. But dying is going to be real tough, you know. They won't let you do it for a start.
But do you begin after menopause to be more conscious of mortality and begin to think more about?
I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere around between 45 and 55.
That's when menopause takes place.
Yeah, but it's not just that.
Yeah.
Menopause is important. Your womb does go away from you. It doesn't really die.
Right.
You know, it shrinks to the size of an almond. Right. You wouldn't know that to read the literature, but that's what really happens. It doesn't die and rot and go maggoty inside you. It just folds its tent and steals away. But at that same time, you probably also have to register the fact that your children are moving away from you, that they are living in a different state, that they have different preoccupations, and maybe the death of a parent or both parents or the failing of your parents. So it's a time when lots of griefs happen, and you have to deal with them. And then you have to decide. I mean, the thing that happened to me is I became aware that I didn't have all the options I thought I had. I used to sing, for example, and I always thought when I have time, I'll sing again. Suddenly I realized, whoops, bit late for the singing.
He's not going to sing.
Well, in fact, I do sing now.
But I talked to someone the other day, I mean, that happens to all of us. I talked to someone the other day who had been sick, and he said to me, you know, when I was sick and I took 6 months off and I thought I was going to learn to fly an airplane, I thought I was going to learn French and do something else, and he realized that now I'm back on the job and I did none of those things, and I probably will never in my life do those things.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Because
when you realize that your time is limited, then there's a bonus there, because you realize that it's also precious. So you wake up every morning and you think, this day is precious.
What's extraordinary to me about this, it seems to me, I mean, if you look at menopause, there is this sort of physiological change that women go through. And then at the same time, there's this thing you're talking about. And to read your take on this, it can be liberating.
I think it is.
Liberating.
But it was such a surprise. I didn't expect it. Nobody told me that I could be happier after menopause than I have been for years.
Now, is that because you're no longer what?
Well, first of all, I'm no longer self-conscious. And
right.
I think I'm not very good at describing this.
If you don't, I don't know who can, because you spent a lot of time looking at all the literature, thinking about this, and reading and talking. Go ahead.
Because you become invisible. Now, there's been a lot in the press about the invisibility of middle-aged women, and it's very disorienting.
Explain that.
Well, in the simplest possible terms, you drive your car into the gas station, and you want to check the tire pressure, which is difficult because you have to have your glasses and the thing and da-da, because now you're 50. Once upon a time, you just had to drive up to the gas line, and you would stand there going, ooh, ooh, and some gorgeous young man would come leaping out, and he would say, can I help you? Yeah. But nowadays, I can stand there.
And they won't come.
Nothing happens.
You're invisible.
Glasses and everything, I have to do it. Or else I have to say, excuse me, young man. And I hate that. Yeah. I have to raise my voice and be the woman in the ads. Excuse me, young man. Can you help me, please, here?
But you're willing to do that.
Must, otherwise I drive on flat tires, which is dangerous.
Yeah. But how do you still feel that that's terribly unfair, that happens to women and doesn't happen to men, in a sense?
It's not that it's unfair.
Well, because you describe a scene in the book where, you know, you and another woman are...
Julia and me.
Yes. And we'll describe the scene.
Sandra and me, sorry.
Describe the scene.
Well, it's a scene we all know, that Sandra and I are sitting in Paris, having a cup of coffee at Beaubourg, and she's saying to me, look at those men, they are our age, and they have 25-year-old women who are hanging on their every word and pretending that they're so interesting and charming. And she says, those men wouldn't look at us. We're highly educated, we're sophisticated,
10 times more
interesting.
Right.
And they want that. And the women also want them. And the men of the women's age wouldn't want us. The 25-year-old men don't want us 50-year-old women, unless, of course, they know that we've got the moolah.
Yeah. And so how do you come to terms with that, in terms of, and what's your message to women who are going through change, women aging, and the menopause?
This is not a big deal. It's really not a big deal.
That life can be, in the autumn, more fruitful, more interesting, more satisfying?
The thing is that when you're not being looked at, now this would be hard for you, Charlie, because you're a handsome man and you're going to get looked at. You're famous too, which is a real problem.
Yeah, right.
But when you're not looked at anymore...
They're just beating the door down, right?
Well, I'm sure they are. But when you're not being looked at anymore, then you can look.
Yeah.
Because you're not aware of people looking at you. So you don't have to think, uh-oh. You can actually stand.
Right. You don't have to be a peacock.
And look. In somewhere like Italy, for example, it's important. I saw all the monuments in Italy at 15 miles an hour because I was running, you know, because if I stopped, someone would sidle up and say, "Buongiorno, signorina." Yeah. But now I can actually stand and look at the Colosseum, and they won't follow me. I'm free. Yeah. And it's wonderful.
And you don't worry about, I mean, I was going to say something like you don't worry about makeup. You don't worry about how you look as much but
don't worry about it at all, really. Except on television because it's a visual medium. Sure. And if you look as if you've just been exhumed, people won't love you. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have written my book if I didn't want to be loved.
Yeah. How about sex, though? I mean, how about your...
About what? What's that?
Yes. Because there's an interesting quote from you which you said, you always wish you could fall in love with a woman. You'd rather fall in love with a woman, but it just wasn't for you.
It's not my luck.
Not your luck.
Women have fallen in love with me, but I haven't, and I've tried, but I haven't got it together. I haven't been able to do it.
What's the problem? I mean, it just doesn't turn you on.
I'm a pervert. I'm heterosexual.
No, but in a sense, why would you wish that? I mean, why not be happy in your heterosexuality?
Well, I have been, and I've been very well loved, I think.
You sure have, yeah.
How do you know?
Well, you've talked about it before. You've talked about that before.
I don't want you to let people think that you know who I've been to bed with.
No, I do not. I have no idea. But you've talked about that in the books, in the stories. And there's always a famous story about the fellow that you lived with over in England. You remember that guy who was a painter or something? What was he?
A house painter.
A house painter, right.
Well, no, I never slept with a house painter, did I?
I think so.
Who remembers?
Okay, but just talk to me about sex and sexuality and what you think about that today, and the sexual revolution and where it's at.
It's really very simple.
Right.
I think that most women of my age are not having much sex. I think about 1 in 2 women of my age, about half the female population of 50, I'm 53, has no man in their bed. But all the literature makes it seem as if they must therefore be disadvantaged, crazy, strung out. Not true.
Yeah, not true. They can be very, very...
It's fine. The thing that kills you, the thing that eats your heart out, the thing that messes you up is bad sex. To have the wrong man in your bed.
Bad sex because you get into this and explain it. Bad sex because it is aimed at procreation rather than...
No, it's useless trying to procreate with ladies of my age.
Right.
No,
I don't mean
bad sex because it's masturbation inside the body of someone else. Bad sex because it's predicated on pornographic images that are then projected onto your body, or Playboy-type images that are then projected onto you so that you are an inadequate substitute, or bad sex because it's cruel, or because it's vulgar, or for a million reasons. I don't know how many of the women of my age who are married to men who desire them and who desire those men. I have no idea. I don't think anybody knows. That's inscrutable. What I want to say is, if you do not desire the undesirable, it doesn't mean that you're inadequate or unhealthy. The undesirable is undesirable, and you can do without it. You will be healthier doing without the undesirable than trying to come to terms with the undesirable.
And the worst thing you could do after this change, at whatever age it takes place between 40 and 50, and all those other combination things, the worst thing, if I hear you can do, is to try to create within yourself this notion of becoming desirable because you think it will make you appealing to the undesirable.
Well, if you're still looking for Mr. Goodbar at 50, you're in trouble. You were in trouble at 35. The trouble must be worse at 50. You're going to end up with something even tackier, you know? It was a truism when you were 35 that all the good men were gay or married.
Or emotional cripples, as a friend of mine used to say.
Well, they're not the good men, are they?
Yeah.
I mean, the bad men are always with us. So when you get to 50, it's time... When they stop looking at you, and when you stop walking in that aura of sexual give and take, of desirability and bargaining, and you're actually free. The funny thing about being free is that at first, it's like having worn leg irons. They take off the leg irons and you can't walk. you fall over because you're used to being held up by the leg irons. And then eventually you realize, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And you take off from the ground. Now, if anyone had said this to me when I was 40, I would have thought they were off their heads. I would not have believed them. That
you would be free and that you would feel as satisfied, as confident, as happy as you are today.
Joyful, joyful. You see, in America, happiness has got something to do with pleasure somehow. You know, if you have a new car, you are happy. It's not like that. It's joy, and which comes right up from the soles of your feet and comes right through you, so you feel completely absorbed in what you're doing, utterly happy.
Are you working better today because your concentration is more focused on your work and things of concern to you?
Do you know what I did this afternoon?
No.
In this exciting metropolis, this
Tell me. You went to the library and read a book.
I did exactly that.
No, did you?
I went to Columbia University Library. I went to the Rare Books Library. They let me in. They gave me the book that we had rung up and told them I needed to see. And I spent the whole afternoon checking marginal marks, little tiny dipsy marks.
And how did you feel about that experience?
It was my big achievement for the day. And I was utterly absorbed, like a spider making a web. I was completely happy.
Yeah. Now, do you think that you make an interesting point here in the book about women who have spent essentially most of their lives reflected by being either a mother or a wife, that for them, you suggest that menopause hits the hardest.
It hurts. When they don't need you anymore. You can't ring up your daughter on her wedding night and say, are you all right? Is everything fine? You have to mind your own business. And in our society, it's really quite strong, it's pushing away of the grandmother, mother-in-law figure. And there's also all that free-floating abuse that middle-aged women seem to get from the media. It's tough, but it's liberating as well. It's just liberating almost by force.
Let me talk about some other medical things, too. What about estrogen? How do you feel about, what do they call it, ERT?
Well,
estrogen replacement therapy.
The funny thing about it is it changes all the time. It's given to us as a panacea, but the drug houses are not happy with it.
But you're not universally opposed to it. You're not.
No.
In some cases, you think that it may make a difference.
It depends.
Yeah.
I
Because
really.
a lot of women, they say it does make a difference, don't they?
Oh yes, but this is a worry.
Yeah. The worry is cancer, or the worry is
no, the worry is never cancer. Believe me. I have always wondered why, in all discussions of hormones of any sort, the big bugbear was cancer.
Right.
Because the statistical increase is not worth worrying about. What you want to know is, will the quality of my life be improved? People who think that smoking improves the quality of their life smoke. They know the statistics about cancer, but they don't care. That's a deal they make.
How does smoking improve the quality of your life?
If you like to smoke.
Oh, well, that's not so much quality. That's more like...
It's a delusion, but they're all delusions. Now, if women feel better on hormone replacement, then I'm happy with that.
Right.
But I'm worried about it because apart from all the worries about replacing estrogen without concerning yourself with uterine hyperplasia, without worrying what is going on with this poor old uterus, you know, it's been bombarded with estrogen all your life. It had very little progesterone because you were very seldom pregnant. Some of us have never been pregnant at all. Yeah. And this poor old womb goes pumping in and out, preparing for a job it will never do. Now, we know that the revenges that nature takes for those are fairly fierce. We know that all this estrogenic stimulation of the uterus is producing strange aberrations in the uterus, like enormous fibroids, and millions of them in millions of women. We know these things. So it seems to me rather strange that when you get to menopause, people say, well, the thing that's going to make you feel fine is more estrogen. Right. We've had a ton of the stuff. And we have our own estrogen as well. And it's too complex, this whole question.
Yeah. You know what surprises me is that your book, and then there was Gail Shee's book earlier, was on the bestseller list. I mean, what's happened all of a sudden? Why did you come to this subject? Was it, I realize, two very different books and two very different authors, but nevertheless, it suggests something about that there is right now enormous concern, I mean, about this subject, and why is that, and what brought you to this subject?
I don't know if there's enormous concern. Historically, there was an incredible burst of concern in the 1920s when people really thought that menopause made people crazy. Right. And they mixed it up with the symptoms of early onset Alzheimer's and all kinds of things. They decided it was all menopause. And then you had the Robert Wilson phenomenon, you know, I can do it, I can keep you young forever, taut-breasted, etc. Yeah, a fit companion for man, a fit companion for old man. They never want us to go to bed with boys. I never understand that, because boys are the natural companions of middle-aged women. I'm here to tell you.
Well, I assume that has to do with performance.
Because their sperm runs like tap water.
Right, okay.
You know? If they get it wrong the first time, they can do it again. In a twinkling, you know. And you don't have to stay awake all night working on this old man. You know, we'll get it together, honey. We'll get it together. Just watch the video one more time. This is my idea of hell, you know. Give me a young man. Torpedos in Nikalos. We all know this. Men have known it for a long time. They just kept it a secret from women. The boy is beautiful, indeed. This is my personal perversion.
Yeah,
I'm a pederast.
But you're beyond that now.
No, I don't think I am.
Oh, I thought you were telling me the rest of this broadcast, all the previous part of this broadcast, were that you were beyond this.
No, I don't think I am.
Oh.
I think what's
so young men of America, watch out, she's here.
No, it's not. I'm not looking for them.
Yeah.
The thing is that I know the more smug I get, the more likely it is that I'll go around a corner and there he will be, Eros himself.
Yeah.
Just waiting, wings folded. So here you are.
Here she comes.
I'm about to make you groan. I'm about to humiliate you, madam. I just hope it doesn't happen. But I have a terrible feeling.
Oh, I think you'll be just fine. Thank you very much. You are now living in Cambridge. You're teaching
at Newnham, which is the joy of my heart.
Yeah. How hard is it for you? And I'm way over, but you know, you mentioned the pregnancy and that you wanted a child, but you didn't. You mentioned you wanted a child, but it didn't work out. How'd you come to grips with all that?
Well, I decided that it was neurotic to go on wanting a baby when it was clear that all the indicators said that it would have to be an enormous investment of time, energy, and money, and that it would be very tricky for the child. I think that what 15-year-old wants a 60-year-old mother to come and see him at the sports day? It's embarrassing.
Okay. Germaine Greer.
Isn't that realistic, don't you think?
I think it probably is, yes. But hope springs eternal.
No, baby. Baby finish.
Germaine Greer, The Change, Women Aging and the Menopause, a book that's gotten a lot of attention, and a lot of people especially like the last chapter, Serenity and Power. I thank you for coming. Pleasure to see you.
It was a great pleasure to see you.
Germaine
Looking
Greer.
good.
Doing my best. When we return, Joe Montagna is here, and we'll talk about Body of Evidence, new film he's making with Madonna. Speaking of all those things. Back in a moment. Stay with us. Tina, thanks for inviting us to the party. Oh, no. I'm doing an hour with Tina soon coming up. I keep saying Montagna. Montagna. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.